Hi, I'm Will from Venture to Rome. On this channel, we go on epic overlanding and car camping trips around the American Northwest. We do gear modifications and installs and offer educational content for folks looking to learn more about overlanding, car camping, and off-roading. But today, we're talking about the things that could ruin your trip. Now, this video will be especially useful for newer overlanders and campers who are just kind of testing things out. But I think there's some good information in there for you old salty dogs as well. So let's get into it. Okay, number one, the first thing we need to cover in overlanding, off-roading, or camping is running out of gas. This is a trip killer, and I've been in some very, very tight spots, and I had to basically beg for gas because I was so far out in the backcountry, I literally couldn't drive my rig back without more gas. I talked him into selling me 4 gallons. It was rationed to 2 gallons a person. He sold me 4. Don't tell anybody. And I've also seen some very experienced people, some of them who live on the road full time, run out of gas in the Idaho mountains in the winter because they made a bad calculation. So don't let this be you. Here's how I approach it. Now, my Jeep JK gets terrible gas mileage. I know that, I accept it, I embrace it. And I've learned the hard way how to plan for gas. Here's what I do. I know that off-road, my tank probably gets around 220 miles of range, like from beginning all the way to the last drop. So when I'm planning my routes, I'm generally looking for gas stations at about 150 miles. This gives me a lot of space to make some mistakes on that route. Now, there have been a few stretches of about 200 miles, which is my max when planning. And I try not to do that very often because at 200 miles, I have very, very little room for error if something were to happen out there. And a lot of things happen out there. Last thing on this, if you come across a gas station and it's not wildly expensive in the backcountry, top your tank off. I've never regretted spending a few extra minutes getting gas, but I have regretted not having those few extra gallons later in the trip. Okay, number 2, running out of water. This is debatably more important than gas. Not having water is the thing that can make everything dangerous quickly for you and your family. So this is the one thing I've never even come close to running out of. And that's because of my approach, which is very simple. Here it is. I plan for 1 gallon per person per day. Easy. This easy formula is the best and easy estimate out there of knowing how much water to bring. It includes drinking water, dishes, coffee, and cooking. So as long as you follow that rule of thumb, you should be fine. Now, once you get to know your habits a little bit better, you'll probably dial this in a little bit more. For example, I've changed up some of my eating and drinking and cleaning habits to save water. So if I'm on a weekend trip, I rarely use water for dishes unless I have to, which happens, but not a lot. You'll figure those things out too. But if you want to start with 1 gallon per person per day, you are in a very good starting place. All right, number 3, the weather. Now, the weather has ruined more than one trip for me, especially during the shoulder seasons. We've had windstorms make us pack up camp and head home. We've had rainstorms drench everything in camp. And we've had sudden snow/thunderstorms completely cancel trips. And I'm sure no matter where you are in the world right now, you can think of your own weather patterns and problems that might affect you going out on a trip. So we cover this in 2 ways. Number 1, we're always watching the weather ahead of time before the trip. Just seeing what the patterns are, seeing what the forecasts are, but you know as well as I do, forecasts are often wrong. So a rule of thumb is to err on the side of calm weather, meaning I place my bets that forecasted calm weather will change versus forecasted stormy weather. So if it's stormy and we're not looking to camp in a storm, we don't go hoping the weather will change for the better. I mean, that's probably common sense to you, but it's still worth saying out loud just in case. When we're on a trip, I'm constantly checking the weather forecast too on my phone if we have cell coverage. But once we get off grid, I switch from whatever app I'm using on my phone to the Garmin InReach Mini. The cool thing about this is it pulls your GPS location and matches it to the nearest weather station for a forecast. So it's really, really handy, but they're also not perfect. We've still been hit with storms under a calm weather forecast from the Garmin InReach Mini. But they're pretty close most of the time. And I found it really useful when you're trying to decide like how many layers to wear to bed. So like if the forecast is a low of 50, I'm gonna dress in like a single layer for bed. But if it's 20 or even 30, I'm gonna put on multiple layers. So Garmin for the win when it comes to the weather. Number 4, animals. This one is really, 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 really simple. So when you're out in the backcountry, there are wild animals. Wherever you're watching right now, I bet you can think of wildlife in your area. And if you don't know, just do a quick Google search on the most common types of wildlife, and then you'll know. So take some precautions if there are aggressive apex predators like grizzly bears in your area, and there is a ton of good info on YouTube for that kind of content. However, what is almost universal is that wild animals almost always come into camp because they smell food. So here it is, your very easy guide to avoiding most wildlife in camp. Keep a clean camp. That means don't leave anything out at night. No dirty cups, no plates, no cooking utensils, no actual food, no drinks, nothing. Just pack it all away and pack your trash inside your vehicle. Most of the time you're camping in wild areas, animals avoid people no matter what. However, if you cook something really, really tasty and really smelly for dinner and you've left it out at night, those smells drift on the wind and a wolf pack might pick up that scent from far away and come into your camp at night, which is not good. Same with black bears and mountain lions, basically all animals, okay? So putting your trash inside your vehicle greatly cuts down on the smells in the air. Now, if you're in a rooftop tent, this is no big deal because you're up above and you're outside the vehicle, you don't smell anything. If you're in a ground tent, same thing. Your trash is in your vehicle, but you're in your tent outside the vehicle, so no big deal. But if you're sleeping inside your rig, then you have to decide what you want to do. You can keep it in the rig with you, or you can keep it outside because you don't want the smells or you don't want to be next to the thing that might actually attract animals into camp. So if you leave it outside, you should probably just put it way away from the rest of the camp, like either hang it on a tree or hang it on a bear hook, or at least put it so far away that animals won't wander into your camp. That is the big secret to keeping wild animals out of your camp. Keep a clean camp, put your trash away someplace where they don't smell it easily. Okay, number 5 on the list of things that could ruin your trip, a closed mindset. Okay, you're like, Will, this isn't a Psych 101 class. This is about camping, which is a good point. But what I mean is that you gotta stay flexible. Like every plan is perfect in your head, but no plan survives first contact with nature. So for example, Kate and I have been on both sides of this. One of our early trips, we literally drove around all day looking for the perfect campsite.
Kate and I have looked at so many campsites and they all are probably okay, but they're like not up to our standards. And we've reached this point in the day where we like need to go home.
So at the end of the day, we literally gave up and drove to a burger place in Lowman, Idaho on our way home. So to me, this kind of demonstrates both. We were so rigid in our expectations about finding an amazing campsite that we backed ourselves into a corner. But we were also like, well, who wants a burger? And we had a great dinner along the South Fork of the Payette River before driving home for the night. So it was still a good trip, but we also learned to flex a little bit and stay out there longer. Even if the campsite isn't Instagram worthy, chances are you're still gonna have a great time around the campfire. So keep your mind open, keep your plans flexible, and reap the rewards of going with the flow when you're out there. Okay, number 6, people. People can ruin your trip. And people might be the thing that ruins your trip most of the time except for weather. And I've had some strange encounters in the backcountry. Like one time this guy rolled up on our camp thinking we were claim jumping his mining claim and he was ready for a fight. It was a tense few moments, but ultimately we laughed and parted ways without anything bad happening. And here's why. I removed myself as a threat to him. I de-escalated the situation. Then I removed myself entirely from the environment. Here's what I mean. Sometimes we can get super picky about who's right in a situation. So like someone rolls up on your camp right next to you and there's a ton of other places they could have been camping and you feel like they have done something wrong to you. So what do? You tell them that they're wrong and you're right. Like, hey dude, you shouldn't be camping here. You should camp somewhere else. What's wrong with you, right? So instead of that, do this. Be nice, because you don't know anything about that person. You don't know what they're doing there. You don't know what they're looking for. Maybe they're looking for a fight. You don't know if they have weapons. So start off friendly and understand what they want. Like, why did they camp there? What's important to them? What are they looking for? Then remove yourself as a threat. Do not stand in their way when it comes to getting what they want. You can explain your situation, but don't create a conflict by threatening what's important to them. De-escalate. Be the person to give. Remove yourself entirely. Give up your campsite. Who cares? I mean, unless you're in a situation where it's dangerous for you to move, move. If they aren't gonna move, then you should move. Can you imagine the best case scenario if you stay? Like sleeping next to a stranger. And that sucks. So just leave and be happy that you don't have someone camping in your space. No matter where you end up, no matter how you got there, it's better just to leave. My claim jumping scenario, the guy actually wound up inviting us to stay, but we still didn't want to hang out with anyone, especially someone who rolled up that hard, right? So better just to pack up and leave. The bottom line is you never know what's going on in someone's head. And out there, things can go bad quickly because no one's around to stop it. Now, this doesn't happen very often, this super dangerous scenario, but it's better to be ready for it than to be drawn into a conflict that could possibly put your life or that of your families in danger. Okay, number 7, the last key component that will absolutely ruin your trip is forgetting your wife's coffee creamer. Never, ever, ever, ever do this. Trust me, you will ruin the trip for her and she might just ruin the trip for you. Just kidding, kind of. Not really. Love you, Kate. Thank you for watching this video. We have a series of informational videos on overlanding and camping, so if you want to see more, click on the screen right now for more Venture to Roam. Thanks everyone, see you next time.